Hi everyone, this is Kayla with Stamping Before Anything Else. Today I'm going to show you an alternative using the March 2020 Paper Pumpkin Kit called Beyond the Horizon. Paper Pumpkin Kits are great for those of you who are just new to crafting or just want a quick way to make a whole bunch of cards in a short amount of time. So Paper Pumpkin, it's great. It comes with all the kits, all the supplies you need to make these 3 different cards. Every month it's different. We have everything in here. It's a mess right now because we've made so many projects with it already. But today we are going to be making this mini diamond fold card. And I got the measurements from Paper Pixie. Paper Pixie is absolutely awesome because she made a mini version and this one will fit in a 3x3 envelope. How cool is that? So you can decorate it. And then on the back side is where you can put a little 2x2 piece of basic white and write your little note on the back side. And it's just a little fun and people can have that just sitting on their desk. It stands up, it lays down. It's just fun to fidget with. So I'm going to show you how to make that. So the first thing that we're going to need is obviously a paper pumpkin kit. Use whatever kit you'd like. I am using the March 2021. We're going to use one of the envelopes from there, and we're actually going to take the envelope apart because it has some pretty DSP on the outside and the inside. We're going to need these elements from the kit. So it's kind of like a little fun sun, something to stamp our sentiment on, and then some mountains and this fun DSP piece. 2 2-inch by 2-inch basic white pieces, and then we'll need a piece of pale papaya cardstock measured 3-inch by 9-inch. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to score this, and I'm going to do that using our Simply Scored scoring tool. So here I have our scoring tool with our paper, and I have my scoring stylus, and what we're going to do is we are going to score at the 1.5 line, the 3-inch line. Then we are going to rotate it and do the same thing. So the 1.5-inch line and our 3-inch line. So now that I have those done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to score and just like make a little mark. Thanks to Paper Pixie, she has this tip. We're going to score right at the 4.5 line. Just put a little nick in there so you know where the 4.5 line is. Rotate it again and do the same thing on the other side at 4.5. So I just have a little tiny nick mark in there. So we're going to use that to align our diagonal lines. So to do that, what we are going to do is we are going to flip over our piece. So our score lines are kind of sticking up. They're a little hill, if you want to call it that. And we are going to align our first score line, that 1.5-inch score line, to our point that we made at the 4.5-inch mark. So we are going to line up this point down here to our 4.5 point. I have a nice mark at the 6-inch line that I made with a Sharpie to help me make sure I'm getting the right lines lined up, and we are just going to make a score line. And then we are going to do the same thing on the other side. So going from our 1.5-inch down to our 4.5-inch mark. What are you laughing at? So now we have a little X. Well, it's actually kind of a big X, but we are going to flip it and do the same thing. So going from that 1.5-inch mark on the other side down to our 4.5. So when you're done, you should have something that looks like this. It might be a little hard to see the score lines, but you'll see them when I get them all scored. So let's do that now. So I'm going to take our bone folders, any hard surface that will help create these hard lines for you. And you want to make sure that when you're folding the lines, you are having it so that the hump, the little hill from the score line is on the back side of the paper. So we have like our little valley from the score line facing us, and we're going to fold away. And those valleys are going to be, right now, are going to be on the diagonals that we're going to fold. Okay, so we have our diagonals folded. Now we're going to flip it over and we are going to score the right side away from us. Same thing with our second line. And we'll flip it over and do the same. So when everything is done, it kind of looks messy at first, but you kind of push it all together so that way it looks like this. And then what you can do is you can take your bone folder and make those measurements even more crisp. Now we are going to take our envelope and we are going to open it up. And this isn't a pretty process. If you wanted, you could take a heating tool and heat up the adhesive on here. I'm just going to take my bone folder and just gently pry the front of the envelope off of the tabs on the inside. So it should look something like this, and we are going to do our best to get all of the designer series paper to fit onto this card, and I actually was able to do that on this one, so we're going to try to recreate it here. I'm going to bring our trimmer in and we are going to cut these into sections. First, I'm going to take the tab off, just cutting along the score lines. And the first thing that I'm going to do is that I want to make sure that I have this inside for the front of my card. So I'm going to do that first, and that's going to be measured at 2 inch by 2 inch. Now I'm going to take everything else and we're going to cut the designer pieces, the pale papaya pieces that will fit in these triangles and then on our side tabs. The side panels are going to be 2 7/8 by 1 3/8. So I'm going to cut first at 1 3/8. So there are 2 side pieces. Now we are going to cut the triangles. And so there are 2 sizes of triangles. We have our smaller ones here that'll go on the inside, and then we have a larger triangle, well, 2 triangles here, and that's all going to be in one piece. So the measurements for the larger triangle DSP pieces are going to be 1 15/16 by 1 15/16. So we have our 1 15/16 square, and we're going to keep that, and remember that's going to be our largest square. And then we're going to need 2 squares that are going to be measured at 1 7/8 by 1 7/8. So we have our 2 small squares and our 1 larger square, and what we're going to do with these is we are going to cut them on the diagonal. And in order to do that, we are going to first start with our biggest piece. And what you'll do is you will line up one corner of the square and the other corner of the square in the cutting track. And make sure you hold it in place, adjust if you need to. Paper Pixie made a great tip when she was showing this to start with your blade in the center of the paper, push down, and then cut down and up. This will avoid your paper from getting pushed in and jammed in on the edges when you're cutting. So these larger squares are going to fit in here. And then we are going to cut our 2 smaller squares. So we're not done with these. What we're going to do next is we are going to take these, remember these are the small squares, and we are going to take the triangles and we are going to cut them in half again. In order to get a straight line, you can put it all the way up at the top of your blade, your trimmer, and then just cut up. And that is all of our cutting. We were able to get all of our designer series paper off using just 1 envelope. Isn't that cool? So we are ready to start decorating our card. And in order to do that, I am going to start with our Pale Papaya Designer Series paper pieces. Again, remembering our largest square that we cut into triangles are going to fit on the largest tabs, or largest triangles, and then all of our teeny tiny ones are going to be filled in. So I'm going to do that now real quickly. Now I'm going to take our green piece and we are going to adhere that right front and center. And then finally we're going to take our 2 side panels and add those on. Now we are going to decorate using the pieces from the paper pumpkin. I took this circle and I adhered it to a piece of basic white cardstock. It doesn't matter the size, this just happens to be 2 inch by 2 inch. And then once we're done gluing it on, we are going to fussy cut it out so it fills in those designs instead of being empty. Now we're going to adhere our sun, if that's what you want to call it, onto the front. And then before we adhere the mountains and our other design, we are going to stamp using the second stamp set that came with this kit and our Misty Moonlight ink spot that came with the kit as well. So I am specifically going to be using a little note. You can use other things, whatever you think can fit on there that thanks you might be able to fit on there as well, but I'm specifically going to use a little note. And when you stamp this, make sure that you're stamping towards the right hand side of the paper. I'm going to trim a little bit off the top so that way the sentiment is right in the paper nice and snug. Then I'm going to close our little diamond fold card. We're going to adhere, put some glue on the back of our sentiment. And while that's drying, I'm going to add our mountains. This is actually the second type of mountain that is in here. I used the blue one. I'm going to use the darker one for this just because I ran out of mountains. So we're going to adhere that right down here at the bottom. And whatever doesn't fit, I'm going to trim it off. And then finally we will glue our sentiment on. Again, doing the same thing, cutting off the extra. And then the last thing, I keep saying the last thing is actually to add that 2x2 piece of basic white cardstock to the inside. You could always write your sentiment first and then add it on, or you could just add it on if you're giving these as gifts, and whoever can write their sentiment just like that on there. So I hope you liked this alternative card for paper pumpkin. It was really fun to make. You don't need paper pumpkin to make this. You can make it with any type of designer series paper and embellishments on the front, but it's a little fun card that was inspired by Paper Pixie. If you aren't already subscribed to Paper Pumpkin, I highly suggest you do. There's so many fun things that you can get on your doorstep just to keep you creative for that month. And it's great for those of you who are just getting started to crafting. Plus, we give alternatives for those who are subscribed to us as a little bonus. So if you like this video, make sure you're giving it a thumbs up and to subscribe to our channel for more projects like this. And be sure to join our newsletter so that way you can get 5 free card making tutorials when you join. Thanks everyone. Bye.